Psychological well-being manages the mental, social, and the life of an individual. This can affect how individuals feel, think, and act. In the African American community, psychological wellness is not the topic to be discussed about. It is viewed as powerless and a shame, which deters them to look for treatment for their sickness. Mental health is not discussed in light of the fact that individuals are misconstrued about what a state of mind is. Anxiety, mood disorders, psychotic disorders, addiction disorders, personality disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder are all examples of mental disorders.
I think with the African American community, it is so stigmatized. It is such a negative thing to say that you are dealing with sadness or depression, to say that you're dealing with anxiety, to even say that you was sexually abused, or you're hurting, or you don't like yourself, or that if you present something is going wrong with you mentally, then you're crazy.
I would say possibly 14, 15 years old. That was at the point to where I started to realize that I had anxiety. At that age, that was when I had my first panic attack about a math test that was coming up.
According to Psychology Today, the amassed research indicates that higher levels of religious belief and practice is associated with better mental health.
I never experienced mental health issues, but maybe a form of mental health, which is depression. But I didn't stay depressed. I went to go seek help. I sought God first, His Word, and then I talked to pastors and counselors, and that helped me get through, all of my stages of depression. I feel like mental health is, an attack of the enemy. Now, as I stated earlier, I'm a man of faith, and I believe that the enemy, Satan, is using mental health to attack us. There's a scripture that says, in Ephesians 6:12, that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and the rulers of darkness and spiritual hosts of wickedness. So I feel like that's what, the whole thing of mental health is just us being attacked in the spirit world.
According to the U.S. Office of Minority Health, African Americans living below poverty are 3 times more likely to report serious psychological distress than those living above poverty.
Our young black men, young black boys and males are sometimes succumb to the environment if they live in a place whereas hopelessness seems to prevail. Then again, they tend to take on that kind of thinking. I might as well behave badly because I'm not going to accomplish anything anyway, or nobody cares about me, and so I'm going to join a gang because they care. But they call me stupid. My mom calls me stupid. My teachers call me stupid and dumb. So hey, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be whatever they say. So I do believe that if where they live and who they live, more so who they are raised by, can make a big difference as to who they are.
Well, as a male myself, when I was growing up, when I would get in trouble, I would tend to cry. And so my mom would always tell me, well, basically my parents and my grandmother would tell me, you need to stop crying. And I was like, they didn't say it looked weak as a boy. That's not exactly what they said, but it does in a way seem weak.
Half of the individuals living with mental illness have experienced the first symptoms at the age of 14. 75% of people who have mental health issues have experienced the first symptoms at the age of 24. That's why it's crucial for young people to understand their mental health at an early age.
Depression runs in families. Alcoholism runs in families. It's categorized and logged into our DNA. Just because you're born with a disposition towards a certain type of mental health diagnosis, I don't think necessarily means that that will happen. But I think your life experience, trauma, loss, a variety of things can impact whether or not that mental health aspect then comes to the forefront. So everyone goes through sex education somewhere between 5th and 7th grade, whether you're in a private school or a public school. Mental health is talked about a little bit more during that process, but not nearly as much as it probably should be.
The first time I learned about mental health, it probably wasn't even until, like, I'd never heard that term really until later in my high school years, to be honest, because when I started going to therapy, that's when I started to kind of understand what was going on as far as my anxiety goes. But I never, like, no one ever told me, well, you have a mental illness, or, you know, it's kind of a taboo topic.
1/3 of mental health participants are receiving treatment for an illness, according to the U.S. Office of Minority Health.
Well, I do, like I said, when a client comes in, I do, according to their therapeutic goal, I do set up a treatment plan. I don't diagnose. I don't believe in labels, even though I may, you know, my client may be symptomatic to certain disorders. I may use that as a guide to setting up the treatment plan.
Every 90 days, approximately, there is a pretty comprehensive review, often just me, but also fairly often with the clients as well, as to here's what our goals have been, where do you think we're at, how far have we gotten. We also use a variety of like rating scales and different measures that will track, you know, so we do an assessment at the beginning, then we use that same assessment, you know, 90 days in, 6 months in, and that kind of helps us kind of gauge as to how far we're doing progress.
Cohort effects and increased knowledge of mental illness can help young adults be more aware of mental health.
I just think they just need someone to be here from them, someone who truly understands them and understands what they're going through. But I would recommend, you know, somebody wise, God's wise counsel, you know, for them to seek, you know, because if we just try to seek help from anybody, it's not gonna work.
I think that college students need to utilize more of the resources that are given from schools. I feel as though colleges have made an effort to promote, hey, come to this place so that you can get this treatment. You know, this is a confidential meeting. You can come here. So I feel like if college students take more of those advantages and not worry about how they will be perceived by their peers, then they would be fine.
I think the more we know, the better we'll be, and the more we will grow in that area. And I know that's what's going on in the African American community when it comes down to males, is that we don't teach them how to get in touch with their emotions. And so we need to allow them to be expressive. We need to allow them to cry. We need to allow them to say, I can't do it. I don't, you know, I can't. It's okay. We need to make it a platform to them to realize that you're not Superman and nobody expects you to be. All you can be is you. Now, what we can do is thrive and help you to be the best you that you can be, not like anybody else, but the best individual you can be.